They played with your heart as if it were a toy, but what they never realized is that some wounds leave a mark on the person who caused them too. And while you were learning how to survive the pain, they were unknowingly walking toward a feeling they could never outrun. Have you ever wondered what happens after someone breaks a heart they once held in their hands? Not in the movies, not in the dramatic messages, not in the revenge fantasies people post online, but in real life, in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Because there is a strange truth about human nature. Sometimes the person who cried is not the one who suffers the longest. Sometimes the person who walked away smiling is the one who eventually becomes haunted by their own choices. Tonight, I want to tell you a story, not just about love, not just about heartbreak, but about something deeper, something philosophers, poets and psychologists have spoken about for centuries, the feeling that arrives when a person finally understands the value of what they lost. At first they feel powerful, certain, untouchable. They think they can replace people the way they replace old clothes. But life has a mysterious way of teaching lessons that pride refuses to learn. And when that lesson finally arrives, it often comes too late. So if someone played with your emotions, if they treated your loyalty like it was disposable, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand why some people escape relationships, but never escape the feeling that follows them afterward. Part 1. The illusion of power. When someone plays with your heart, they usually aren't thinking about consequences. They are thinking about control. They enjoy knowing they can disappear and return whenever they want. They enjoy seeing how much emotional influence they have over another person's life. For a while, this feels like power, and power is intoxicating. That is why some people become careless with genuine love. They mistake someone's patience for weakness, someone's forgiveness for dependence, someone's loyalty for permanence. But every illusion eventually collides with reality. The ancient philosopher Seneca once wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Ironically, the person who played with your heart eventually experiences the opposite. They imagined they would always have options, always have attention, always have replacements. Yet reality slowly reveals something uncomfortable. Not every connection is replaceable. Think about a person who leaves behind a priceless painting because they believe they can buy another one tomorrow. At first, they feel confident, but years later, they discover the masterpiece they abandoned can never be recreated. That realization becomes heavier with time. The same thing happens in relationships. The person who played games rarely understands your value while you are still present. Presence hides value. People become accustomed to what is always available. Your kindness, your messages, your understanding, your emotional support. They stop seeing these things as gifts. They start seeing them as guarantees, and guarantees are often taken for granted. Then one day, something changes. You stop chasing, you stop explaining, you stop trying to convince someone to appreciate what they already had. And suddenly the emotional safety they depended on begins to disappear. At first, they don't notice. Then they feel a small absence. Then a strange emptiness. Then a question. What if I lost something I can't replace? That question is where their journey truly begins, and the feeling they cannot escape starts growing in silence. Part 2. The silence that becomes their mirror. When someone plays with your heart, they often depend on one thing without even realizing it: your reaction, your messages, your attempts to understand them. Your willingness to keep the connection alive even when they are giving very little in return. As long as you are emotionally invested, they never have to sit alone with the consequences of their behavior. You become the distraction from their own conscience. But something profound happens when you finally let go. The noise disappears, and silence enters the room. At first, they welcome it, Freedom feels exciting. No accountability, no difficult conversations, no emotional responsibility. They tell themselves they made the right decision. Perhaps they even convince others that they are happier now. But human beings can only outrun themselves for so long. Eventually, life slows down. The distractions become quieter. The excitement fades. And in that silence, they begin hearing something they have avoided for a very long time: their own thoughts. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is where that quote comes alive, because many people who hurt others are not escaping the person they left. They are escaping parts of themselves, their fears, their insecurities, their inability to love deeply, their fear of vulnerability, their fear of commitment. And when you are gone, those hidden truths have nowhere left to hide. Imagine a lake during a storm. The waves are violent. The surface is chaotic. Nothing can be seen clearly. But when the storm ends, the water becomes still, and suddenly every reflection appears. Your absence creates that stillness. The silence becomes a mirror that asks uncomfortable questions. Why did they push away someone who genuinely cared? Why did they seek temporary validation instead of genuine connection? Why did they trade something meaningful for something fleeting? Those questions don't arrive all at once. They arrive slowly. A memory appears while driving home. A familiar song begins playing unexpectedly. A random photograph resurfaces. A place you once visited together suddenly feels different. And with each reminder, the silence grows louder. Because memories are strange. When a relationship ends, people rarely remember the arguments first. They remember the moments that made them feel alive, the laughter, the support, the feeling of being understood, the comfort of knowing someone was there. And that is when regret begins planting its roots. Not dramatic regret, not movie scene regret, the quiet kind. The kind that visits at midnight. The kind that appears during lonely mornings. The kind that whispers, "Maybe I didn't appreciate what I had." At first, they try to ignore it. Then they try to justify their actions. Then they blame circumstances. But eventually, the truth starts breaking through every excuse. Because excuses can protect the ego, but they cannot silence the heart forever. And the heart remembers things the mind desperately tries to forget. The person who played with your emotions may have walked away believing they escaped the situation. What they don't realize is this: people can leave relationships, but they cannot leave the lessons those relationships were meant to teach them. And sometimes the lesson arrives years later, when the person who once loved them is no longer waiting. When the door they assumed would always remain open has finally closed. When they realize the silence they once enjoyed has become the very thing that haunts them. That is when the feeling becomes impossible to escape. And what comes next is even more powerful, because regret is only the beginning. The real transformation starts when loss becomes undeniable. Part 3, when loss finally becomes real. There is a moment in every story of loss that changes everything. A moment when hope quietly leaves the room. A moment when a person stops saying, "I can always go back," and starts realizing, "Maybe I can't." This is the moment the person who played with your heart never expected, because for a long time, they believed your love would remain exactly where they left it. Waiting, available, unchanged, like a book sitting on a shelf, ready to be opened whenever they felt bored, lonely, or nostalgic. But life doesn't work that way. People grow, people heal. People rebuild themselves from pieces they never thought they could put back together. And while they were busy taking your presence for granted, you were learning how to survive without them. That is the part they never see coming. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." Most people misunderstand this quote. Strength is not becoming hard. Strength is becoming whole again after being broken. Strength is discovering that your happiness was never dependent on someone else's ability to appreciate you. Strength is realizing your value even when someone else failed to see it. And while you are learning these lessons, something unexpected happens to them. They begin noticing your absence in places where your presence once felt ordinary. A birthday arrives. You aren't there. A difficult day happens. You aren't there. A personal victory occurs. And suddenly there is no one to share it with who understands the full story. The world continues moving, but something feels missing. Not because they lost attention, not because they lost convenience, but because they lost familiarity, the rare comfort of being deeply known by another human being. In today's world, people have endless ways to connect. Thousands of followers, hundreds of conversations, unlimited distractions. Yet genuine emotional connection remains incredibly rare. And often people only recognize rarity after it disappears. Imagine someone throwing away an old key because it looks ordinary. Years later, they discover it was the only key capable of opening a certain door. That realization changes everything. Not because the key became more valuable, but because they finally understood its value. The same happens with love. Your worth did not increase after you left. Your worth was always there. They simply failed to recognize it, and now reality becomes impossible to ignore. They start comparing new connections to the one they lost. Not intentionally, not consciously, but comparison happens naturally. The conversations feel different, the trust feels different, the depth feels different, the emotional safety feels different. No matter how many people enter their life, something remains unmatched. Something remains unfinished. This is when regret transforms into grief, because regret says, I made a mistake. But grief says, I lost something precious. And grief is much harder to escape. For the first time, they understand the emotional cost of their actions. For the first time, they see the damage that selfishness created. For the first time, they feel what you felt. The emptiness, the longing, the unanswered questions, the silence. Life has a strange sense of balance. Not revenge, not punishment, balance. The lessons we refuse to learn through wisdom often arrive through experience, and now they are experiencing what they once caused. Yet the story doesn't end there, because there is one final feeling that follows regret and loss, a feeling so powerful that it stays with some people for years, a feeling that appears when they finally understand the truth about the person they let go. Part 4. The feeling they can never fully escape. There is a feeling that arrives long after the arguments have ended, long after the messages stop, long after the photographs are hidden away and life appears to have moved on. It doesn't arrive dramatically. It doesn't announce itself. It simply appears one ordinary day and changes everything. A familiar song plays in a crowded store. A memory flashes through the mind. A certain laugh reminds them of you. A place they once visited suddenly feels haunted by absence. And for a brief moment, they are no longer living in the present. They are standing face to face with a version of their past they can never return to. This is the feeling they cannot escape. Not heartbreak, not loneliness, not even regret. It is realization. The realization that some people enter your life only once. The realization that genuine love is rarer than they believed. The realization that they were so focused on what was missing that they overlooked what was already there. And perhaps the most painful realization of all, you were never asking for perfection. You were asking for sincerity. You were never asking them to be flawless. You were asking them to care, to show up, to value what they had, to recognize the gift before it became a memory. But human beings often possess a tragic habit. We become blind to blessings through familiarity. The sunrise loses its wonder because it happens every morning. The people who love us lose their value because we assume they will always remain. And assumptions are dangerous things. Lao Tzu taught that what we hold too tightly often slips through our fingers. But there is another truth hidden inside that wisdom. What we fail to appreciate eventually teaches us appreciation through loss. For some people, this lesson becomes a turning point. They grow, they mature, they become more conscious of how they treat others. The pain becomes a teacher, the regret becomes wisdom, and because of what happened with you, they never repeat the same mistake again. But even when growth occurs, the memory remains, because certain people leave fingerprints on the soul, not because the relationship was perfect, not because everything was beautiful, but because it was real, and reality leaves marks. Years may pass, entire chapters of life may unfold, new relationships may begin, new experiences may emerge, yet there are moments when they still remember, not with the intensity of fresh heartbreak, but with the quiet ache of understanding, the understanding that they once held something meaningful in their hands and failed to protect it. Albert Camus wrote that life is the sum of all our choices. And perhaps that is what ultimately stays with them. The awareness that one decision, one act of carelessness, one season of emotional immaturity altered a story that might have been different, a story that can never be rewritten, because time moves in only one direction. This is why the deepest feeling is not sadness. It is the awareness of possibility, the awareness of what could have been, the family that never existed, the memories that were never created, the future that remained unwritten, and unlike heartbreak, which eventually fades, possibility has a way of lingering. It visits unexpectedly, it whispers softly, it asks questions that have no answers. What if I had treated them better? What if I had stayed? What if I had understood their value sooner? Some questions never fully disappear. They simply become part of a person's story, and that is why the person who played with your heart cannot fully escape this feeling. Not because life is punishing them, not because fate is seeking revenge, but because truth eventually reaches everyone. Sooner or later, every person is forced to confront the consequences of what they valued and what they neglected. And when that moment arrives, they finally understand something you learned much earlier. Love is not rare because it is hard to find. Love is rare because it is easy to overlook. So, if someone once played with your heart, remember this. Your healing was never about making them regret losing you. Your healing was about remembering your own worth. The greatest victory is not watching someone suffer. The greatest victory is becoming the person who no longer needs their validation. Because while they may spend years wrestling with memories, questions, and regret, you have the opportunity to do something far more powerful. To grow, to heal, to become. And one day, when you look back at the pain that once consumed you, you may discover something extraordinary. The heartbreak that nearly destroyed you became the very thing that transformed you. So don't waste your life waiting for someone to realize your value. Realize it yourself. Because the moment you truly understand your worth is the moment you stop being defined by who left and start being defined by who you became. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment below. I know my worth. And remember, some people lose you and learn a lesson, but you lose them and discover yourself.